In this lesson, we'll talk about the concept of an attribute as it relates to vertex normals in Houdini. So we're returning to where we left off when we were building our tire and wheel assembly for our concept car, and we had just made this merge here at the bottom of our network view. Now, as soon as we made the merge, we got this funny little black and yellow sort of B striping around our node, and we noticed that we had a warning. Now, if we middle click on this node, we'll learn a little bit more about that warning. So when I middle click, I get this pop-up dialog box here, and it gives me a lot of very useful information. Now, with our new understanding of attributes, this warning at the bottom makes a lot more sense. It says there's a mismatch of attributes on the inputs. Okay, some attribute values may not be initialized to expected values, for example, UV and N. So basically what we have here is a mismatch of attributes, which means there's something on this side of the merge that's different than this side of the merge. And when those attributes are trying to be shoved together to this new piece of geometry that includes everything on both sides, Houdini gets a little confused and doesn't quite know how to handle it. Now, I want to be able to see my geometry spreadsheet and my geometry at the same time, so I'm going to do the same trick that we did in the previous lesson, only this time I'm going to split my pane a different way. So I'm going to use the Pane tab Operations dropdown, and I'm going to split the pane left-right. Okay, and I'll take this one now. Instead of being two scene views, I'll turn this into my geometry spreadsheet, which again, using the Pane tab dropdown here, I can do Set Pane tab Type and just come over until I find the geometry spreadsheet. Okay. Now, with the geometry spreadsheet selected, we can kind of begin to troubleshoot this and see exactly what's happening. I'm going to move my display flag to the last node before the merge on the side of the concept car and make sure that I have it highlighted here in the network view. So let's take a look here at our geometry spreadsheet and see what all we're messing with. Well, at the point level, we have a position attribute that's describing in X, Y, and Z the position of all of the points here on the vehicle. Okay, that's kind of what gives it its shape and position in the scene. We may need to pan over just a little bit here. There's this scroll bar at the bottom that'll let you do that. So we're just panning over in the geometry spreadsheet. And we see that we have another attribute here as well on the points. So we also have a descriptor for something called UVs. Okay. Now, on the vertex level, we have some other attributes that are describing elements or attributes here of the vertices. And it is this N value. And we'll discuss what that is here in just one second. On the primitives, well, there's these group material. There's just some interesting things here going on with groups, it looks like, on the primitive level. And then at the detail level, we don't really have any attributes at all describing the overall elements of the vehicle. Okay? So now let's look at the other side of the input to the merge. This is the wheel assembly that we've been creating up until this point. I'm going to make sure that I have it highlighted here in the network view and move my display flag to this Copy To node. So now I'm looking at the wheel assembly that we've been building. Let's go through and look at its attributes and see what all it's got. Again, we'll start with points. So I see that I have some position here, and that's good. It's describing where these points are located in space, and that makes sense because they all need to be somewhere. But what's different here is back over on the concept car on this left-hand branch, if we move back over here, we had position and UV. So we're missing that UV attribute over here on our wheels and tires. Now let's go ahead and look at our vertex attributes as well. So here I have this N, which is a normal, okay? And then over here on the concept car side, if I move my display flag and select it, I do not have an N or normal. Okay, so basically what's happening is we've got something on this side that's totally different than the thing on this side. Like there's things describing elements of the car that are not included in the description of the wheels. So when Houdini gets confused like that, you get this little warning. And your geometry is going to look a little funny too in the viewport. Well, we're going to correct both of these things. We're going to basically do this by balancing out the sides of the merge. So once the objects on both sides of the merge have the same attributes, then we won't have this error and our geometry will look normal again. So the first thing I want to address is the concept of normals. What are normals, and how do we actually add them to what we need? Okay, so if we look back at our vehicle here, at our vertex attributes, or for attributes on the vertices, we see that we do not have any normals. However, if we look back over here at the tires and wheels, we'll see that we do have normals. Now, we didn't specifically add these normals. We didn't have to add a node that included them here somewhere on our wheel when we were creating it. At some point, one of the nodes that we used automatically built those normals for us because we were starting with Houdini geometry from scratch. So somewhere in our node network here, we were given normals that we could work with. And we can find that, if we'd like, just by going through here and middle-clicking on these nodes. And again, when you middle-click, you get a lot of very useful information. One of the things that we see here is that at the level of this transform node, if we middle-click on it, we do have this one vertex attribute called N for normals. So it exists at this point in the chain. And we can easily just keep going up. I'm going to middle-click here. I have the normal. I'll come back up. Here's the poly bridge. We middle-click here. We still have the normal. So we can just climb all the way up until we find that we do not have the normal, and we can find where the normal comes from. So right here at the tube, we see there is no normal attribute on the vertex at all. With the first poly extrude, we get the normal. So this first poly extrude node that we used created that normal on the surface, and that normal stayed with us all throughout the creation. In fact, here's the section right here on the poly extrude where that normal is added. It says normals. Do we want to add the vertex normal? And we clicked yes, or actually by default, yes was checked. We can uncheck that. Now if we middle click here, we'll see that we do not have that attribute listed. We just have the point attribute of position. No normals. We can go ahead and click this button again, adding them back. Middle click on that poly extrude node, and now we see we do have that one vertex normal. Okay? So that's where the normal comes from. It's not just magic. There's this particular node somewhere in the list of nodes that we were using when we were developing the tires and wheels that added that attribute for us. That node came in and it said, I want to describe this normal. Now you may be asking yourself, what exactly is a normal? Well, I have a couple of different things here that'll help explain that. The first thing you realize as soon as we made these connections was that our geometry turned this sort of dark, strange gray color, right? Well, a normal is basically a point on the surface that helps Houdini do a lot of different tasks. One thing that it does is it helps define what is inside and what is outside, what is up and what is down. Whenever you're shading something, in other words, rendering it to the viewport, it's what helps decide what color things are. So basically, the normal here is a vector. Okay, so by vector, I just mean it's a direction. It's just an arrow that basically describes what direction is up or down or inside or out. And without a normal, Houdini gets very confused and it doesn't know how to draw that piece of geometry in the viewport. Now, whenever we add a normal, all we're doing is we're coming in and we're telling Houdini a particular direction. We're saying this is outside of the geometry and everything down here will be inside. We're basically picking a direction that is perpendicular to the surface, and we're defining it. We're saying, hey, this way is up. This points to the outside world, and this points to the inside world. And again, before we have that normal, Houdini is very confused. It doesn't know which way is up or down or in or out when it's trying to draw that particular piece of the geometry. So you get this sort of dark gray weird color. Well, adding normals is very, very simple in to add normals to geometry is very simple in Houdini. So again, we're going to look here at the left-hand side of our concept car, and we'll see that our concept car, if we middle click on it, does not have that vertex normal. Now, it looks fine because it doesn't have anything to conflict with. Houdini is basically deciding for us what's inside and what's outside for our car. But nothing has been explicitly defined on the vehicle as what's in and what's out. So whenever we merge, Houdini's confused. All we have to do is insert a normal node right here before the merge, and it will balance out the two sides. So that's very easy to do. We just do a tab key, and we need to type out normal. So we'll do tab, N-O-R, and here comes our normal node. And you'll notice the icon for normal looks just like I showed you in that example. It's a little piece of geometry with an arrow pointing out from it. So we'll click on that. We'll add that to the left side of the merge node. Now if we look at the merge node on the left-hand side, at our vertex, we have normals that are defined. Okay, we look at the right side, which is the wheels and tires that we've been developing, and we have normals that are defined. Okay, now when we go to merge, Houdini says, okay, I know exactly how to treat this geometry. I know which is in, I know which is out, I know how to draw it in the viewport, and everything seems to look the same to us here in the viewport, and it will when we render as well. But we've still got this strange little error going on. Let's go ahead and middle click on it now and see what it says. Well, now we have the same error. It says a mismatch of attributes was detected, only now it's only listing UVs. The normals are now matched. We've created a balance between both sides of the merge so that there are normals on both sides. So when the merge happens, no problem with the normals. Now we have to address the UVs, and that's what we're going to do in the next lesson.